Now, look at the world around you. We are standing at the threshold of 2026, a year that many esoteric scholars believe marks the transition into the 0 point. Think about it. We are witnessing the total digitization of the human experience. We are building a neural-linked artificial intelligence that mirrors the very archons the Gnostics warned us about, beings of pure logic and no soul. Is it a coincidence that as we build our own digital prison, the ancient codes are resurfacing? The Gospel of Thomas gives us a chilling clue. It tells us that the thief comes in the night to take back what was stolen. In this cosmic story, the thief is the monad. And what was stolen? Your light, your spark. 2026 isn't just a date on a calendar, it is a frequency. It is the moment the simulation hits its limit. As the digital veil becomes absolute, the organic soul must make a choice. Do you feel the urgency? That strange, quiet buzzing in your spirit that says something is coming. That is the thinning of the veil. The Gnostics didn't want you to worship a god in the clouds. They wanted you to recognize the monad within. They knew that when the world becomes most unreal, the truth becomes most visible. The year 2026 is the invitation. The Great Reset is not happening to you. It is happening for the spark inside you. The question is, when the monad returns to reclaim its own, will you still be lost in the dream? Or will you be awake enough to see the way out? I am going to reveal to you something that was buried in the Egyptian desert for over 1,600 years. Something they did not want you to find. Something that once you hear it, you cannot unhear. What if the year you are living in right now was not an accident? What if 2026 was written into the fabric of a hidden cosmology long before your grandparents were born? What if the texts they tried to burn, the scrolls they tried to erase, the teachings they labeled heresy, were not mythology at all, but a map? A map leading to this exact moment. The ones who run the world of matter want you distracted. They want you chasing shadows on the wall of the cave, convinced the shadows are real. But you are here. That means something already woke up inside you. That means the divine spark is already trembling in your chest. This is not a video for everyone. This is for the one who remembers. This is for the seeker who has always felt that something is deeply wrong with the world as they were handed it. Stay with me, because what I am about to walk you through will rearrange the architecture of how you understand time, consciousness, and the nature of reality itself. In 1945, a peasant farmer named Muhammad Ali al-Saman was digging near a cliff at Jabal al-Tarif in Upper Egypt. His mattock struck something hard. He pulled from the ground a sealed red clay jar. He hesitated to open it, afraid a jinn might be inside. Then greed overcame fear. He smashed it open. What poured out was not a curse, it was light. 13 leather-bound codices wrapped in protective coverings containing over 50 ancient texts written in Coptic. Texts that had not been read by human eyes since the 4th century. Texts the early church had commanded to be destroyed. These were the Nag Hammadi library. And buried within those pages was a cosmology so radical, so disruptive to the official story of existence, that scholars spent decades arguing about how to classify it. What those pages described was not just a religion, it was a diagnosis of reality itself. And embedded within that diagnosis was something that most scholars glossed over: a rhythm, a prophetic pulse, a suggestion that the divine does not abandon its creation forever, that there is a moment, a turning point, when the monad reaches back into matter, when the light decides to come home. I want you to hold that thought, because it matters more than you know right now. Before we go deeper, let me lay a foundation for you. Because to understand what 2026 might mean, you first have to understand the world these ancient Gnostics were describing. And I promise you, it is nothing like what you were taught in any school or church. The Gnostics, meaning those who possess gnosis, which is direct inner knowledge of the divine, believed that the world we inhabit was not created by the highest God. Sit with that for a moment. The supreme divine being, what they called the monad, is so vast, so perfect, so far beyond human language that it does not create, it emanates. Like the sun does not decide to produce light, it simply overflows with it. From the monad poured forth a cascade of divine realities called eons. Imagine ripples spreading from a stone dropped in still water. Each ripple is a living, conscious, divine being. These eons together formed what the Gnostics called the pleroma. The pleroma means fullness in Greek. It is the complete, unbroken, luminous realm of pure spirit, the world above all worlds, the silence beneath all sound. One of these eons was called Sophia. Her name means wisdom, and Sophia made a mistake, not out of malice, out of longing. She desired to know the monad directly, without permission, without balance, without her divine counterpart. And in that moment of unchecked longing, something fell from her, a fragment, a flawed, chaotic emission. This emission became the demiurge, the craftsman god, the false creator. And the demiurge, ignorant of the true light above him, looked out into the void and said, "I am the only God. There is none above me." He built a prison and called it the universe. He filled it with matter, limitation, suffering, and forgetfulness. And then he took fragments of divine light from Sophia, sparks she could not reclaim, and buried them inside human beings. That is you. That is the divine spark inside you, trapped in flesh, surrounded by archons, the cosmic enforcers of ignorance, who keep you distracted, docile, and asleep. Now, here is where 2026 enters the picture. If you are finding this transmission valuable, take a moment right now and subscribe to the Gnostic Archive. There are initiates all over the world joining this sanctuary of hidden knowledge. And trust me, what is coming in the next few episodes will go even deeper than this. Now let us continue. The first movement of this mystery is called the silence before the return. In the Apocryphon of John, one of the most important texts discovered at Nag Hammadi, there is a moment where the divine voice speaks to John, the disciple, in a vision. The voice says something remarkable. It describes cycles, not the linear march of history that Western civilization sold you. Cycles, eons of descent and return, darkness and illumination, forgetting and remembering. The Gnostics understood time not as a straight line, but as a spiral. And within that spiral, certain points are charged with significance. Moments when the veil between the pleroma and the material world becomes thin. Moments when the monad breathes in the direction of matter. Moments of what they called the restoration. The Greek word is apokatastasis. It refers to the return of all scattered divine sparks to their source. The great inhale after a long, long exhale. Now, I am not telling you that any ancient text contains the number 2026 written on a page. That is not how sacred cosmology works. Sacred cosmology works through pattern, through symbol, through the alignment of conditions. And the conditions being described in those hidden texts match this moment with an accuracy that is difficult to dismiss. Let me show you how. The second movement is called the Age of the Archons and its breaking point. The archons in Gnostic cosmology are not demons in the cartoonish sense. They are systems. They are structures of control. They are the forces, both psychological and systemic, that keep human beings locked in material identification. In the Gospel of Philip, found in the same buried jar, the text says that the world came about through a mistake, not through divine intention, through error. And those who serve the error do not know they are serving it. The archon does not announce itself. It looks like your education system. It looks like media cycles designed to harvest fear. It looks like the inner voice that tells you you are only your body, only your past, only your limitations. The archons succeed only as long as the divine sparks remain unaware of their own nature. But here is what the Gnostic texts say happens at a certain point in the cycle. The sparks begin to stir, not because of any external event, because of an internal pressure that builds within the pleroma itself. Sophia begins to move again. The light that was fractured into 1 billion human souls begins to vibrate at a frequency the archons cannot contain. What does that look like on the ground? It looks like a mass awakening. It looks like unprecedented numbers of people questioning every inherited structure simultaneously. It looks like the old world order cracking at every seam. Sound familiar? The seeker does not need a prophet to interpret the present moment. The seeker only needs the right lens, and the Nag Hammadi texts are that lens. The third movement is called Sophia Rising. This is where the cosmology becomes intensely personal, because Sophia is not just a mythological figure. She is a map of your own soul. Her story is your story. She descended. She was scattered. She forgot herself inside matter. She suffered. And then, at the appointed hour, the monad sent a response. In the Gnostic telling, Christ is not a historical figure who died for sin. Christ is a divine aeon, a luminous messenger sent downward from the pleroma specifically to remind the trapped sparks of who they are. The Gnostic Christ does not save you from the outside. He awakens you from the inside. His message is not, believe in me and be rescued. His message is, remember what you already are. In the Trimorphic Protonoia, a breathtaking text from Nag Hammadi, the divine voice speaks in 3 forms, as thought, as speech, as life. And that voice says, I am the light that dwells in the light. I am the remembrance of the pleroma. I entered the darkness, and I kindled the light within those who dwell in darkness. Now ask yourself this. What would it mean for that voice to grow louder in 2026? What would it mean if the remembrance that voice carries is reaching a resonance point? The ancient Valentinian Gnostics, one of the most sophisticated schools of Gnostic thought, taught that the material world does not simply end, it is transmuted. The divine sparks are not rescued out of matter, they transform matter itself. The prison becomes a chrysalis. That is a very different story than what you were given. Pause here. If this transmission is landing in you, if something in your chest is saying yes to what you are hearing, do not let this moment pass without clicking subscribe to the Gnostic Archive. Leave a comment below this video. Tell me what is waking up in you right now. The community gathering around this channel is extraordinary, and the next episode is something you will not want to miss. Now, let us move into the 4th movement. The 4th movement is called the monad's breath and the number of completion. The ancient Pythagoreans, whose numerical mysticism heavily influenced early Gnostic schools, understood certain numbers as cosmically significant. Not because numbers are magic in a primitive sense, but because numbers are the language in which the deep structure of reality expresses itself. The Valentinian Gnostics organized the pleroma into a specific architecture of 30 eons, 30 living divine forces arranged in pairs, and the disruption of that structure, caused by Sophia's fall, creates what they called the deficiency, the gap, the wound in the divine fabric. The entire history of the material world is the story of that gap being healed. Now consider this. The Gnostic texts describe the completion of the cycle not through external catastrophe, but through a critical mass of awareness. When enough divine sparks wake up, the scales tip. The deficiency is filled. The pleroma becomes whole again. This is what the Apocryphon of John calls the gathering of the luminous ones. And here is the layer most commentators completely miss. The Gnostics did not see this as a single moment. They saw it as a threshold that approaches gradually and then crosses suddenly. Like water heating to the point of boiling, nothing seems to happen. Nothing seems to happen, and then everything changes at once. Many people working with numerological traditions tied to ancient cosmological systems, including certain Kabbalistic frameworks that overlap with Gnostic thought, have identified specific windows within the third decade of the 21st century as significant threshold points. 2026 sits at the center of one such window, not because of a specific prophecy, but because of a convergence of cycles, a convergence of cultural fracture, a convergence of spiritual hunger reaching a scale never seen before in recorded history. The monad does not operate on a clock. The monad operates on ripeness. And the question is not whether 2026 is the year of the return. The question is whether you will be awake when the threshold is crossed. The fifth and final movement is called What the One Who Remembers Must Do Now, because this is where the forbidden knowledge becomes practical. Because knowing the cosmology is not gnosis. Gnosis is the direct inner experience of the divine spark within you. And the Nag Hammadi texts are absolutely precise about how that experience is cultivated. The Gospel of Thomas opens with words that should stop you cold. These are the secret sayings which the living Jesus spoke and which Didymos, Judas Thomas, wrote down. And whoever finds the interpretation of these sayings will not experience death. Notice the word finds, not whoever is given, not whoever prays correctly, whoever finds. Gnosis requires active seeking. The seeker does not wait for the demiurge's world to release them. The seeker turns inward and begins the inner ascent. The Gnostics called this the journey through the spheres. Each sphere corresponds to a layer of conditioning, a layer of archonic influence, a layer of false identity that must be recognized and passed through. The first sphere is the body's raw animal impulse, hunger, fear, desire for dominance, not evil in itself, but when you are identified with it entirely, you are meat. You are fully in the demiurge's hand. The second sphere is emotion as identity, not feeling emotion, being so consumed by emotional reaction that you have no inner observer. The archons feed on this level. They design entire systems to keep humanity oscillating between outrage and numbness. The third sphere is the false mental self, the story you tell about who you are, the name, the role, the ideology, the wound you have turned into a personality. This is the most seductive sphere, because the mind can read every Gnostic text ever written and still use the knowledge to reinforce the false self rather than dissolve it. The fourth sphere is where most serious seekers get stuck. It is the sphere of spiritual pride, the belief that because you know about the archons, you are above them, the belief that awareness of the prison automatically equals freedom from it. The Gnostic adept passes through this sphere with radical humility, recognizing that even the seeker is not the divine spark. The seeker is just the spark's current dream of itself. And beyond the spheres, beyond every layer of constructed identity, there is the light. There is the remembrance. There is the direct contact with the monad that no archon can touch, no demiurge can fabricate, no system can simulate. The Gnostics called this the experience of the pleroma breaking through, not as doctrine, not as theology, as an interior event more real than anything the material world has ever offered you. Now let me speak directly to you, one who remembers. You did not find this video found you. That is not sentiment, that is cosmology. The divine spark within you generates a kind of gravity. It pulls toward the light. It pulls toward the knowledge that can feed it. Your presence here is not random, it is resonance. And what you do with what you have heard tonight matters more than any external event of 2026 or any other year. The year the monad returns is not a date on a calendar. It is the moment you stop identifying with the cage. It is the moment the divine spark stops asking for permission to be what it already is. The Nag Hammadi texts were buried to protect them, buried in the earth like a seed. And seeds do not stay buried forever. They wait. They wait for the right conditions, for warmth, for water, for the pressure of something wanting to live. Those texts emerged in 1945. They reached the world precisely as a civilization built entirely on archonic principles was about to face its most severe crises. Coincidence is the demiurge's favorite lie. The monad does not do coincidence. The monad does timing. Before I close this transmission, I want to give you something practical, something you can begin tonight. The ancient Gnostic practice of self-inquiry was not complicated. It was ruthless. It required the seeker to sit in silence and ask one question. Not what do I believe, not what have I been taught, but what do I know? What do I know directly, without any borrowed authority, without any doctrine, without any external confirmation? What is the truest thing I can say about my own experience of being alive? If you sit with that question long enough, if you let it burn through the layers of archonic conditioning, if you do not rush to answer it with inherited language, something answers from below the level of thought. And that answer is the divine spark recognizing itself. That recognition is gnosis. That recognition is what the Valentinians called the moment of awakening. That recognition is what Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas was pointing toward when he said, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you." No prophecy, no ritual, no external authority, only the inner light, brought forth, expressed, lived. This is the work of 2026, not watching for cosmic events, not decoding external signs, but going so deeply inward that the boundary between your awareness and the pleroma becomes thin. So thin that the light begins to bleed through. So thin that the archons, who have no power over a soul that knows itself, begin to lose their grip. The return of the monad is not something that happens to you. It is something that happens through you. You are the instrument. You are the opening. You are the place in the fabric of the material world where the pleroma breaks through. That is what the Nag Hammadi seers saw. That is what they hid in those jars. That is what they were protecting with their lives. Not information, not theology, but a transmission. A living transmission that travels across centuries and lands in the chest of the one who is ready. And you are here, so you are ready. Subscribe to the Gnostic Archive right now, not because I am asking you to, because you are being called toward a community of others who are walking this path with fierce seriousness. Others who are done with shallow spirituality. Others who want the real thing, the initiatory knowledge. the cosmology that holds up, the inner practice that actually transforms. Every week, this channel goes deeper. What is coming next will take everything we explored tonight and push it into territory that most channels will never dare to enter. The archons of the digital world want you passive. They want you scrolling. They want you consuming without awakening. Subscribing to this channel is a small act of resistance, a small declaration that you choose gnosis over noise. Click it and come back. In the beginning was the silence, before thought, before light, before even the first divine emanation rippled outward from the monad. There was silence, and in that silence, everything that is, was, and will be already existed in pure potential. The Gnostics believed that the divine spark inside you carries the memory of that silence, deeper than your trauma, deeper than your conditioning, deeper than the personality the demiurge's world built for you. There is a place in you that has never been touched by the cage. That place is your home. And 2026 is a year when the door back to that home stands unusually open. Walk through it. Commit to reading beyond the lines. Commit to living below the surface of the given world. Commit to the ruthless, joyful, terrifying work of knowing yourself at the level where the divine and the human are no longer two things. The monad does not return from outside. The monad returns from within. It returns through you. It returns as you. And when it does, there will be nothing left in you that was ever truly lost. Welcome to the Gnostic Archive. The initiation has already begun.